Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Dissident Dispatch. So this is the show. If it's your first time here, this is the show where we dive into the material, the receipts, the nitty gritty that I've had sent to me across the past week or that I've dug up myself. I try to corral it into one show a week for my own mental health and for your own. But this is where I show you why I think the things I think and say the things I say. If it's your first time at the channel, welcome. Hope you will consider subscribing so you can be notified when I make new content like this show or some of our other productions. Please do like and share this broadcast so as many people can participate live as want to. We usually have a pretty active chat where people share ideas, ask questions, etc. I do try to do Q&A at the end. If I see something pop up and it happens to catch my eye that needs to be addressed, I'll try to address it as we go. But for the most part, I try to cover what I'm covering and just take note of what I covered and then ask me towards the end, and I'll try to answer your questions. So let's get into this today. Last week, we talked a lot about New Jersey specifically, and we talked about what's happening with gender theory. And, people might have come away from that show thinking, okay, so New Jersey's really messed up, even though I showed a lot of things that are used throughout the country. Today, I wish I had more to show you that was not strictly speaking in gender, but this seems to be the thing they're doubling down on the most. I'm going to show you some stuff about anti-racist teacher training as well, to emphasize the point that this is coming in through the teachers. This is coming in from teacher training. It doesn't have to be at the top level. If you're looking at your school's website or materials and saying, I don't see where it says CRT, or I don't see anything, it looks clear, it looks okay. Then, it's very often coming in from the teachers and the training they're getting, either from their teacher training to become a teacher or their professional development across the summer or during the year. So I'll show you how that's being influenced a little bit tonight. But the thing where they just are not letting up is gender inclusivity, gender theory, gender lessons, comprehensive sex ed, whichever way they can get it in there. And near as I can tell, what's happening, hi Wiki, what's happening is they're pretending to strike a bargain with parents and politicians who've been against, let's say, critical race theory and discussions of race. And they're using social emotional learning as how they're going to strike this bargain. They'll say, well, we need to get these kids properly prepared for the 21st century and to deal with a diverse workplace and to deal with all the different kinds of people they're going to be meeting, as if America was, homogeneously white until 5 minutes ago or something. We need to, really hone in on these skills. And so if we can talk about race and we can talk about this, and if this is going to be a problem, then we have to have the social emotional learning. You have to let us do SEL to train them to be empathetic and compassionate, blah, 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 blah. And the problem with that is there's no difference. The SEL is about social justice. The SEL is about changing their mindset, changing their worldview to a collectivist worldview. It wouldn't matter if you got rid of all the critical race lessons, or the lessons that are focused on race, or the lessons that are even focused on gender. If they came in with if they change the kids' mindset with SEL, it's just super easy to just plug in the gender software at any point in time. Could take one day. That's it. Plug in, all they have to do is say, this is what you need to do for the collective. This is what you need to do for social justice, and boom. So, but you'll see a lot of lawmakers, in particular Republicans, be like, oh, okay. social emotional learning, soft skills, getting along with people, being nice, being compassionate. Yes, everybody needs that. Of course, we all need social emotional skills. This is very important. And they don't understand what they're saying. I mean, it really is that straightforward. SEL is the ultimate Trojan horse. You change the worldview, you change the child's sense of self at their core, from a unique individual to a person who looks at the world as their, as what they need to do to be active to bring about social justice for groups of people based on power and privilege. What difference does it make if you then get all super specific about race or gender? You can do that later, right? So beware. That's something I've noticed in the rhetoric. That's what I've noticed. Yes, well, we're scaling back on the anti-racism, but, and if come midterms, you need to hold the politicians' feet to the fire. And if they start to think, well, we've compromised, we're going to do the SEL, but we're not going to do this race and gender stuff, don't buy it. Just don't buy it. SEL, arguably worse, because your little kid with a good, sense of individuality goes in and starts hearing like, you're an oppressor and it's terrible and you owe things. If they have a solid sense of individuality, they'll be like, I'm not buying it. Same thing with gender and pronouns. They feel like pretty good about their nuclear family and, they're not being separated from their parents and having their brains scrambled at an early age with SEL lessons. They'll probably be more resistant to that too. Okay. So it's very, very, very important to resist SEL, and it's everywhere. It is the thing they're going to be just ramming down your throat. So, all right, let's get into some specific stuff that was sent to me, and it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge, because it is sort of all over the place, but I'm going to start with, let's see, what should I start with? The worst or the best? I don't know. Okay, let's pick something. So I'm going to show you something very controversial that was sent to me. This is actual purchased curriculum. A whistleblower purchased it for me. I obviously can't say who or where or when or anything. This is publicly available, but they bought I got the first month of it. All right. There's 12 months worth of curriculum under gender inclusive classrooms. I'm not going to show you everything in this video. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it is and click on some of the links to show you what it goes to and what's available. But what you need to know is this is 2022, 2023. This is current. This will be in use in classrooms where teachers or schools have decided to buy it. It links to some of the sites I've already shown you. So there's that cross-pollination thing going on. And it's cuckoo. Okay. I mean, some of this stuff is just insane. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna show everything. What I'm going to try to do is give you an overview here, and then I will try to put together a more comprehensive article going through it. So for my Substack, so keep your eyes open across the next week or so for that. But let's quickly just go through. Okay. Notice we have right here, doing the work, shifting your mindset. They're right up front about shifting that your mindset has to be shifted. But from what to what? From what to what? Okay. Specific actions for supporting trans and non-binary and gender expansive students. This is a new term you're going to hear, gender expansive, which I think is sort of an umbrella term for kids who are like, today I'm this and tomorrow I'm that. And then, I'm something that isn't even a gender you ever heard of before. Okay. So they're opening up wide. The gender binary does not exist in this curriculum. All right. August and September's curriculum specifically, as it shows here, is identity work and pronoun exploration. By the way, did you happen to notice the ages that this is for? Okay. Because this is K through 5. Just so you know. Identity work and pronouns. All right. So the why. It all comes down to this. Children need to feel safe, seen, and heard. I don't think anyone would dispute that. Where I begin to argue, and I hope you will too, is that safe at this age is literal. It's literal. Like, is anything physically bad going to happen to me? Can I use the restroom when I need to? Is someone going to be mean to me, hurt me? Like really super literal and concrete. They're not thinking in terms of, I want to feel like emotionally safe to share my innermost thought. That's just not how a typical K through 5 student thinks. They're not there. Okay. In order to be available to learn, students need a space where they can be vulnerable. Hogwash. That right there is your first lie. Children arrive on this planet ready to learn. Anytime you see, this is available is just a fancy word. Ready, available, etc. The only children that you could say who are unavailable to learn are severely traumatized children. We're talking about children who are so trapped inside themselves or so busy, acting out that that's all they can think about. They forget making them feel safe is going to be dealing with the trauma. None of this stuff because they're damaged. But your average kid comes into this world like input, learning. They learn to speak, they learn to walk, they learn to, use a spoon. They learn to do so many things. They even learn to do that in impoverished families. They learn to do that if they don't have enough food to eat. They learn to do that with all kinds of problems going on around them. So this notion that they're like, I'm just a lump sitting in the chair. I'm unavailable. There's a prerequisite for me to learn, and you have to do something, and then I will come to life and I can learn now, pull my strings. That is a lie. It's just a lie. They were able to learn the day before you dropped them off at kindergarten, and they're available to learn the day you drop them off there. That right there in that class, they're available to learn. Only if somebody gets in their way. Okay, so this is just a flat out lie. And then they use this, according to 2017 GLSEN National School Climate Survey. Not at all self-interested. Not at all self-interested. Like, according to the activist group that did a survey, they were literally pushing an agenda. Transgender and gender nonconforming students in schools with supportive, inclusive policies are less likely to be required to use the wrong bathrooms. All they're doing now is giving you their definition of what inclusive means. This is linguistic trickery. They're not saying they're less likely to hurt themselves, less likely to not learn, less likely to have some bad thing happen to them. They're less likely to be required. That all you're saying is that our definition of a supportive, inclusive policy is you don't have these restrictions on these people. That's all that means. Gender inclusive classrooms don't just affect trans and gender expansive children. They also help shape powerful allies. Shape powerful allies. So unless it is your goal in sending your child to elementary school to become a powerful ally of gender nonconforming children who've now been labeled by adults. They've been labeled trans. They've been labeled these things. Okay? Little children don't self-diagnose with mental illness. They've been labeled. And if they do self-diagnose, it's because some adult has given them the diagnosis and said, here, is this what you want? Okay. So this is not happening organically. But what they want to do now is, having inorganically created people who need allies, they want to inorganically create the allies out of your kids, the kids who don't fit into these categories. So your kids can become one or the other. They're either going to become one of those kids that's been labeled as non-conforming, or they're getting ready to become a powerful ally of those kids. Is that what you sent your child to be? In service to other people? Certainly not what I sent my kids to school to be. So there's that. Yes, Gays Against Groomers, if you want to put clips from this video or any images shown, you may. Yes, of course. Just, with credit where you got it from, that's fine. Doing the work. Okay, we talked about shifting the mindset. Teaching a gender inclusive manner does not mean reading a book about transgender child, nor does it mean teaching a lesson about gender stereotypes. Oh, would that it were that simple, right? Ideally, by electing to use this guide, you are making a conscious decision about the way you think about gender. So we see it's not enough to really just be inclusive. Being inclusive would be to read that book. Remember they said representative, diversity, inclusion. We like bring in a book. We let them see themselves as if they already exist in the K through 5 classroom. Okay. No, teacher, you need to completely change how you think about gender. You have to change your worldview. So that's why I say to people, like, if you're wondering why I say, if it's not in your school in like a book or a curriculum or whatever, it's probably coming in through the teacher, is that they're getting this kind of thing in professional development trainings and all kinds of coursework and all kinds of pressure on the internet to change the way they think, not just how they teach, how they think, what kind of person they are, the adults. Okay. You're committing to noticing how your own implicit gender biases, in other words, everything you've known about gender to be true and factual up until this point, throw it out. How they creep into your teaching behavior. They're reframing what you saw as reality. It's biases creeping into your teaching behavior. See how sinister they make it sound? You thought there were only boys and girls? You thought gender was binary? You thought that gender nonconforming was just a thing that a girl could be or a boy could be? No. That's creeping into your teaching and your behavior. So now you're reading this going, oh no, I don't want biases. Bias is practically like bigotry. I don't want that creeping into my teaching and behavior. This is all designed to make people feel like you will not be a good person unless and until. This new shift requires you to no longer think about gender along a binary, see? And instead begin to think of it as a spectrum. Gender is a spectrum. That's what gender expansive means now. With endless possibilities and presentations. Endless. It requires you to practice using they as a default pronoun, referring to strangers or characters in books, instead of assuming you get the point. Doing the work, shifting your mindset. Do the work. Do the work. And there are teachers that will do it. This is selling. This is selling. They wouldn't have it out there. They're making money. They're selling it to teachers. They're selling it to schools. And if you say, well, I'll just go into the school board and I'll make sure they're not buying this. Teachers are buying it. Nonprofits are buying it and giving it to teachers. PTAs are buying it and giving it to teachers. Okay? It exists. It's coming. So you can go look over your budget all day long, unless you know for a fact they're not using this, unless the teacher looks at you and says, I would never use that. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Assume. Just assume it's this or something like it. Okay, how to use this guide. Wait, what is this? Specific actions for supporting trans, non-binary, and gender expansive students, as well as those with queer families. Do you know how much work this makes for a teacher? Hi, are you a queer family? Oh, I'm sorry, you're not queer. How would you describe yourself? Do you know how much intrusive, like bordering on like nosy? This is crazy. You guys, when I was a teacher, I taught first grade. I knew this much about the kids' families. Pretty much if they wanted to tell me something. I was like, is there anything I need to know to support your child? If they said nothing, I didn't ask. That's like not my business. Okay. And it was going to be what they thought. Is there anything I need to know to support your child from your perspective? Not mine. Yours. Parent says, no, we're good. Everything I told you in the forms. That's all I need to know. My students didn't know my first name. Miss Philman. They didn't know my first name. They didn't know if I was married. They didn't know if I was dating. They didn't know a damn thing about me. In fact, I think they thought I lived in the closet at school. And that was fine by me because we had appropriate boundaries between adult and student. I ran into a couple of them. I remember once at the grocery store, they were like, oh, it was like the sighting of Bigfoot. Oh my God, she's our teacher. Oh my God, she's out. You go to the grocery store? I do. I go to the grocery store. I even eat food. I mean, it was like that. Now, it's like, how does this family and that family and the other family? I mean, I don't really want to know that many personal details, nor really should anyone, unless the family says it's pertinent to helping their kid. Like, my kid's having a hard time. This is going on. I think you should probably know this. Okay, thank you for the information. But otherwise, none of my damn business. Maybe you guys disagree with me, but that's kind of how I feel about it as a teacher. All right. Then let's see, confidential gender support plan. Oh, you might be wondering, what's a confidential gender support plan, Dab? Let's take a look at the confidential gender support plan, because I did bring one of these up. This is confidential, which means it's confidential even from the parents if they don't want you to know. I mean, if the student or teachers could say, the student seemed uncomfortable with me sharing this information with the parents, or the student didn't explicitly give me permission to share it with the parents, so I didn't. And that's all the leeway they need to not share it with the parents. Because they can also get away with not asking the child, are you okay if I share this with mom and dad? Or picture this, if you will. 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, even 12 or 13-year-old. Do you want me to not tell your parents about this? This can just be, don't worry. This can just be between us. Now, how they present that, the tone, the framing, the whole demeanor of the teacher can make all the difference. You could have a fantastic relationship with your child, and if the teacher lets on, this might be hush hush. This might be something they don't want to share. If you want me to keep this confidential, I can. Now the idea is planted in the child's mind. Maybe I don't. The teacher seems like afraid. The teacher seems like, maybe I shouldn't tell my parents this. Maybe I shouldn't. Or maybe the kid is only doing this in school because they want to fit in at school and they want to go home and not tell mom and dad because they think they can just keep it at school. They think that this can be my protection at school. So I'm like cool and hip and I get a flag and I have special pronouns and like I'm in the cool group or whatever. And everyone thinks I'm like not a boring normie and they want to just go home and be Susie or go home and be Sam, just like they always were, and not have anybody be the wiser because it's really the costume they want to wear at school. Except, what do we know about socially transitioning children? Tends to take on a life of its own. And then the kid is like, I don't know how to back out of this. All my friends think I really am. But I kind of, well, not really. I don't know. And I'm going to lose all my friends and my teacher's going to be all mad at me. And kids do things for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with telling the truth. And yet we have this confidential plan. The purpose of this document is to create shared understandings of how the student's authentic gender, they've decided that that's the authentic one. Whatever one they said at school. Not what the parents said. Not what the kid says at home. Not what the kid said the day they arrived at school. Or the first 6 months or 6 years of school. No. The one they said, could have said, I don't know. I think it might be, okay, let's get that gender support plan going. I can see it now. Oh, I noticed they were playing with blocks a lot. Let's get that gender support plan going. Because, we went from, we can't have the boy and the girl toys separated at Target because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as gendered toys. Remember that? That was like 2-3 years ago. It was really recently that there was a big flap about Target saying, we're going to reorganize the toys based specifically just on like the type of toy it is, not based on gender at all. And, because we don't want to predispose anybody to buying dolls only for girls and trucks only for boys. Because they used to have, I guess, like whatever they used to have, blue and pink or some garbage. And they said they'd gotten complaints. They got complaints from people, activists, saying there's no such thing as a gendered toy. How dare you? And I'm going to show you something in a few minutes that you're going to go, wait, what happened to there's no such thing as gendered toys? Because now, little boy, 2 years old, picks up a doll. Oh, there it is. He's really a girl. I'm embellishing slightly, but only ever so slightly, as you'll hear shortly. Anyway, so yeah, their authentic gender will be accounted for and supported at school staff, caregivers, if appropriate. By the way, caregivers is what our new name is, guys. We're not parents anymore. We're caregivers. We're just caregivers. We just give care. We don't parent. That's their job, apparently. No one's parenting. I hate to break it to you, but even if a child has a foster caregiver or a grand caregiver, that person is parenting them. That's kind of the act. That's the verb. That's what's happening. They are parenting the child. They could be an aunt. It could be an uncle. Whatever they're parenting. They're doing the job. They're not just feeding them, clothing them, and sending them off to school to be parented. But that's what they're trying to do. By erasing the parenting role and calling us, demoting us to caregivers, that makes this okay. And furthermore, we're in a parenthetical now, if appropriate, only if appropriate do we get to find out if our kid has a gender support plan, if appropriate. Who decides? And the students should work together to develop the document. Ideally, each will spend time completing the sections and then come together to review them and complete shared agreements. They'll come together. An adult you don't know, a total stranger, and your minor child will complete a document about how their alleged authentic gender will be supported at school. Parent guardian involvement. Now they mention us. How nice. Guardians aware of student gender status? No. Yes, no, support level, et cetera, et cetera. If support level is low, what considers? Who decides? Who decides? If you haven't told them, if they don't know, okay, then how would you know what the support level is? So the only way you can check off the support level being high or low is if they know. I'm here to tell you, they assume. There's so many stories now where they have assumed. There's a famous case in California with this one girl, I think her name was Yaley. They assumed because the mother was Catholic, they decided that you couldn't possibly be supportive enough. Okay, so that's that one. And as I mentioned, I'm going to show you why I say that they think there's, it's totally fine. Gendered toys, when does a child know?
A child will often
they're transgender. I'm going to share the screen and you'll hear for yourself. Hang on one second. I got to get this down. All right. So it's going to be here. Billboard Chris, our wonderful Billboard Chris, is the one who shared this. And he says here, playing with the opposite gender toys is a sign your child is transgender. That's exactly what Boston Children's Hospital says. Listen carefully.
A child will often know that they are transgender from the moment that they have any ability to express themselves, and parents will often tell us this. We have parents who tell us that their kids, they knew from the minute they were born practically, and actions like refusing to get a haircut or standing to urinate, trying to stand to urinate, refusing to stand to urinate, trying on siblings' clothing, playing with the quote opposite gender toys, things like that. There is more and more a group of adolescents that we are seeing that really are coming to the realization that they might be trans or gender diverse a little bit later on in their life. So what we're seeing from them is that they always sort of knew something was maybe off and didn't have the understanding to know that
they are very suggestible when they're going through puberty because they're very uncomfortable. And when you have adults coming in and offering them a revisionist history to explain why they might have even felt strange before, and they could have undiagnosed autism or just autism. They could have ADD. They could have a sensory processing disorder. They could have a host of issues. They could be gifted and nobody's noticed. There could be a lot of things that are different about them. They don't have a word for why they feel different or odd or strange. And conveniently, one of these lovely gender educators comes in and tells them that maybe that's because of reasons. Oh yeah, I remember feeling different. That must have been it. There could be any number of dozens of reasons they felt different as a small child, but the tell is the gendered toys. These people are not playing with a full deck. Then there was another one. That he pointed to. Here it is. This one is even worse.
So most of the patients that we have in the GEMS clinic actually know their gender, usually around the age of puberty, but a good portion of children do know as early as seemingly from the womb, and they will
seemingly from a good portion. What's a good portion? What's a good portion? I don't know, like 0.001%. I mean, Aren't these kids supposed to be a teeny tiny percentage of the total of children in the first place? Are there so many they needed to make marketing videos? A good portion. We're smiling. We're bouncing. We're excited. We have our Warby Parkers. We're cool. This is awesome. I'm so excited to be planning to sterilize your children. It's so fantastic. This is like the best job I ever had. That's what she's projecting. From the womb, she says. From the womb. It's a cult. This is not normal. This is I can't even with this stuff. Okay. So that was that. But now you see why when I was showing you the other stuff about the gender support plan. I'm going to go back to that curriculum briefly because we're not done with that charming document. Just wanted to cut away and show you why. And of course, we have a special note for LGBTQ teachers, et cetera, teachers teaching Black and brown students. Why that would be different, I do not know, but they do have a section on that. Like I said, I'm going to write about this more. So I'll go into some of the details. But here are the guides across the months. So in August and September, we have the identity work and pronoun exploration. October, November, we'll be thinking critically and unpacking stereotypes. You mean the stereotypes you're using to label these kids trans because they don't fit the gender stereotype of the gender they were born? You mean those stereotypes? Right. December, beyond the binary. January, February, unlearning the universal he. This makes me so angry. I don't know where to start. Okay. The universal he has a history. You can go and read it. It has nothing to do with maleness, masculinity, or anything like that. I would suggest you go learn it and read it because there are whole churches that are doing away with it when reference even to God. So we are going so far off the rails from even the English language and etymology and all of that. It's infuriating. They're trying to attach some kind of oppression to everything where it never was. So they can have an excuse to get rid of it instead of just saying, we want to change English because we feel like it and we know that that will confuse everybody and make it easier to control them. They've got to make it bad. They have to justify it. If they just told you we want to change it because reasons, you wouldn't do it. March and April, using LGBTQ plus language. We have a whole new language. So again, kids who might feel disconnected from having any kind of culture, suddenly feel like they're in the know, they have a cool code. May, June, looking forward, looking back, history and activism. Because why would you want to be an activist unless you could feel like you were part of this wonderful history of activism? So they do that. It's what we used to do with teaching patriotism. There's a purpose to it. You teach the history of other patriots because you want patriots. Let's be honest. You know, we wanted our kids to grow up and be patriotic or be loyal to their country, or at least be, happy and defensive of their country so we'd have a good country and take care of it and protect it, defend it, volunteer and be in the military. We do have an all volunteer military. After all, we don't want to draft. So we wanted to, have patriotism put in, instilled in the kids. You can call it indoctrination if you want. Sure. That's fine. Probably was a little bit. But that's what they're doing. It's just a different kind. They want them to be loyal and patriotic to a different cause. So I don't know why it would surprise anybody. Here we have these through intentional identity work, students will begin to develop a deeper sense of self. No, they'll have whatever sense of self they arrived with fractured into pieces. So it won't be deeper at all. It will be labels and fractures. That's why I keep coming back to the rainbow analogy. You know what a rainbow is, right? It's light, which has no color. It's white, right? No color, just light. And you put it through a prism, or you put it through raindrop, you put it through water droplets, and it disperses. So you see the individual colors. You see all the parts of the whole. In fact, all you see are the parts, and you actually don't see the light anymore. And when do you see a rainbow? The only time you see a rainbow is when the light is behind you. Yes, it's my little metaphor, but I hope you'll internalize that and think about that, because even though I'm not sure, I can't demonstrate at all that anybody thought that through when they were thinking of all these colors and everything and the whole rainbow attached to everything, it's useful for me because that's what they're doing. They're breaking your child into a group of little parts that can be easily defined and clearly labeled Roy G. Biv, except not BIPOC or 2SLGBTQIAP, whatever. Those are the new colors of the new rainbow. The new fractured light that your child makes up or refracts out onto everything. And if they'd like to be whole again, good luck. Good luck to them. So these are all the things they want your little child to learn. They want to teach these big words: ethnicity, gender, gender identity. You think this is appropriate vocabulary? And of course, we have the obligatory book lists, which I've shown you before. You know, there's tons and tons and tons. They just got done telling you it's not about just reading a book and then they give you this many books. Have some books, teacher. Oh, here we go. This is the meat of it. Each and every one of these little links goes to lessons. And remember when I said that it doesn't matter if you get rid of like the CRT or the specific anti-racism stuff, they'll bring it in some other way. Well, look, they'll bring it in through the gender stuff. What do we see? Black Lives Matter school activity book. They'll put it in somewhere else. Gender inclusive biology. Did you know that's a thing? That's a thing, guys. I'm going to show you gender inclusive biology now because that's a thing. Bet you didn't know that. Yep, it's a thing. All right. To support all students present and future, we must adapt existing biology teaching to grow gender inclusive curriculum. So we are now going to get rid of how can we affirm our transgender and intersex students when we talk about X and Y chromosomes? How do these fit into our understanding of science, development, and evolution? They don't, which is why, of course, we have to change it all. And they conveniently have lesson materials, lessons and activities. Oh, look. Lesson plan, the guardian frogs, differences in sex determination. They're going to show your kid every kind of animal there is that doesn't have a sex binary. And then get your kid to think like, oh, just like humans, right? Because humans are like frogs and like clownfish and like, except humans aren't clownfish. There's a song, by the way, on YouTube. Go look it up. It's fabulous. Graphics, diagrams, see, like I said, it's sex diversity in nature. We're going to talk about that and have your kid, conflate themselves with some other animal. Diverse families, what makes a baby, blah, blah. Here we have, they're actually trying to make cis a scientific concept. So yeah, that's another part of this charming curriculum. What else? Family communication. Now I'm going to show you some of the letters. They've actually pre-written letters for teachers to send home to parents. And that kind of blows my mind because I can't even believe that they're not going to let, the teachers have their own, do their own stuff. Let's see if I opened this up yet. Let's see if this is in here. No, this is just gender spectrum. Hang on one second. I got to get to this document. But they do have letters. I thought I opened them up. Maybe I didn't. That's the confidential support plan. Yeah, they've pre-written letters for parents to send home. If I find it, I'll bring it up. But right now we're looking at the Gender Inclusive Schools form. And this is from Gender Spectrum. This is a little different. This is another group, genderspectrum.org. You can see down here. They have, also helpful language things. These are, this is what gender inclusive schools do. This is how the instruction works, etc. So again, just a high level view of how many materials are out there, how detailed, how granular they get. They're very obsessed with language, internal, interpersonal, instructional, institutional. I don't know how these teachers don't get a headache from this. As if it's not, isn't it enough to teach reading and math? Question limited portrayals of gender, validate choices people make associated with their personal gender. As I said, if you are a teacher in a classroom and you're spending an inordinate amount of time questioning these things, you're creating enormous confusion for the child. So they're trying to get a handle on the world and like how it works and how, who the relationships of people to each other and all that. They're getting one message at home, most likely, and another message at school. And if you didn't talk about this, you might ask like, okay, Deb, well, if we didn't bring this up in class, do they have a point? Would the kids end up really intolerant? And would they, be like, what the hell is your problem? Would they be rude, whatever? I would argue, no, they would not, because they would discover things organically. So in other words, as they came across somebody or as they met somebody or as it became an issue in their life, they would have the questions they have. And then they might go to a parent and ask it. They might ask it of the person that they're dealing with directly, and that person can answer it. But they would come up in their life organically, and they wouldn't have to feel this sudden sense of confusion of having to deal with it and like inorganically. Like right now, I have to deal with this question when it's not really presenting itself to me in my life. And when you sit there and say, like, who decides this and who decides that? And what about this? And what about that? And why is this way? And why is it that way? The kid who already comes to the world with a million different questions is now going, I don't know. Why are you asking me? And then, of course, they don't know the answer. So they look to the teacher and says, well, because it's oppression, because it's power, because it's privilege, because it's wrong. They give answers that may or may not have anything to do with reality, but they have everything to do with an agenda or a worldview that the child might never have agreed with or even thought of had the idea not been planted because the question was planted. That's what James Lindsay was talking about, these generative ideas. It starts with generative questions or generative concepts. A teacher is supposed to teach children how to conceptualize. They're not supposed to prevent them from forming any concepts organically by discovery of their own world as it happens around them. They're not teaching them how to think. Like when you encounter something new, what will you do? Well, gosh, I don't know, teacher. What should I do? Well, what happens when you encounter? Have you ever seen one of these before? Do you know what it is? Okay, well, what could you do to find out what it is? Well, I could look at it. I could, touch it. I could smell it, taste it. I could use my 5 senses to kind of figure out what it is. Look, it opens. Oh, it has holes. What is it? Okay, good. That's good. That's you're observing, you're questioning, you're asking questions. So when you come across something new in this world or a new person you've never met before or something like that, you could take this. Obviously, don't smell them, and that's Joe Biden's job. But you could ask questions. Hey, I've never met anybody like you. What's that like? Okay, so you could do that. And yes, there's some soft skills to be learned, right? You go, what the hell is wrong with you? And why are you a boy wearing makeup? Okay. And I mean, like you could work on that, but you don't put the questions and then give the answers. And then the kid's like, okay, thank you for alleviating my massive confusion for me. And now I have your ideas, not my own. So that's why this is a problem. That's why. It's not because I want kids to be intolerant little a-holes. It's because I want kids to be kids. I want kids to, figure things out on their own. I do want to bring this up. Gazy and Screamer says cisgender was coined by Volkmar Sigush. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He said there's nothing wrong with, I assume that says pedophilia, liking or loving children, the sensuality that unfolds between a child and something. It's not a word to be taught in school or used at all. I agree. Well, I don't think it should be taught because it's a nonsense word. It's a nonsense term. I mean, now that I know the origins of it, oh my God, I'm not going to allow it to be used in my presence like ever. I will take offense. I will. I'm sorry. I've had people call me that. I've had people say that to me, and I reserve the right to take offense. I take offense when people label me, period. And I wish everyone else did. Don't you dare label me, and don't label my child. You don't know me. You don't know them. And unless I assign a label to myself and tell you to call me by that, it is absolutely not your job or your province to do that. And if somebody says that to me, I'd be like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. If I don't get to say to somebody, you're a dude, I can see the 5 o'clock shadow. You are a guy. If I don't get to do that, if that will get me punched in the face or arrested or God only knows what, kicked off Twitter, then nobody gets to come up to me and say, you're cis. No, you don't get to do that. I am Deb. That is what you could, Miss Philman, if you don't know me. So that was that. I'm going to close that up. Like I said, I'm going to try to write an article about this whole gender curriculum thing, the gender inclusive curriculum, because there are a lot of points I want to pull out and have in writing so you could go back and refer to it. I just wanted to give you the high points here of why it's a problem. There's also a project that I want to show you. It's called Project Thrive. This came to me from another whistleblower. The reason this is relevant, you can see, is Human Rights Campaign Foundation is backing this. This is a national campaign to support LGBTQ and the Q youth, and the National PTA is all up in this. This is a big, big deal with the National PTA. They are sending people to these trainings. They are partnering with Project Thrive. They are all about it. So, if you thought that the PTA, the National PTA, was like, a parent organization or didn't know, it's not. It's like emphasis on the teacher association. Like it's almost like a liaison between the unions and activist parents. And there are parents in the National PTA who are not down with the activism, but they stay in because to keep an eye on it. They stay in because they're like, I want to know what the heck's going on. But they're not with it at all. The ones who are all excited about it are who you would expect them to be. They're pro-union, they're pro-teacher, they're pro all of this. They're pro using schools for activism, political activism. So we, the current members and supporters of Human Rights Campaign Foundation Project Thrive campaign, representing over 5 million youth-serving professionals. Youth-serving professionals. You mean youth exploiting professionals? That's my term. Across the country are deeply troubled. They're deeply troubled by the public health disparities among LGBTQ youth, as reported in HRC Foundation's analysis of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Biannual Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance, YRBS. They love acronyms, don't they? Released August 2020, nearly 2.5 million youth identify as LGBTQ. That number has gone up, by the way, since 2020, dramatically, with tens of thousands more saying they're questioning their identity. I can't imagine why they're questioning their identity when there's all these questions put on them. Well, I noticed that you like to wear your hair short. So, maybe you should question that. I noticed like all your friends are that. Oh, I noticed that maybe you should, even if it's not said directly to them, it's surrounding them. It's everywhere they go. Why wouldn't they be questioning? I had a student recently tell me that she wasn't sure yet where she stood on all of this for herself. Older teenager. And I said, why? I mean, I'm just curious, like what's standing in her way of figuring it out? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just not sure. I'm still processing all the possibilities, like all the things I could decide to be or whatever. Like, in other words, she was talking about it like it was a Chinese menu of identities, and she was not ready to order yet. That's the tone. It was kind of like, I am still not sure where I fall on that. Now, I'm sure it's possible. I guess anything's possible. You could be 17 or 18 years old and still feel that way, I guess. But there was something in the nonchalantness with the way, like just this nonchalant air of, I just, I'm still working through it. I'm just like, trying to decide all the options. I'm like, maybe I'm just strange, but I was under the impression that most people, including most gay people I know, they know. They kind of know, like they know you usually arrive at 18 or 19 and you're 90% solid on that part of who you are. Maybe a lot of other stuff is confusing, but whether you're male or female, boy or girl, male or female, expressing in any kind of solid way, gay or straight, even bisexual, you tend to have a pretty good idea by 18. So that shocked me. And apparently that is common. That is common. Yeah. So it's, I would think, don't you think also gay people don't need to question or explore their options? Don't you feel like it's almost a little bit insulting that it would even be suggested? That we're also like, it's kind of like, can I not be sure about anything? Are these people so attached to being unsure about pretty fundamental stuff that they can't even let the people who are sure be sure. Right? I mean, that's what was said to one of my kids, I think in like early high school. Are you sure you're straight? And she's like, yeah. Like pretty sure. Pretty sure. But are you sure? It's like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, what? That's weird. Remember back when it was really rude to ask a gay person if they were sure they were gay? Like, we wouldn't do that. That's incredibly rude. It just was known you didn't do that. You'd go, are you sure you're gay? It's like, no, I'm totally unclear on the topic, but now we do that to people who are straight. We do that to people who are gay. We do it to anybody. Are you sure? Are you sure? It's like, let's keep asking you until you're dead. Are you sure? It's like, what's it to you? So anyway, let's take a look at this craziness. I'm going to make this a little bigger, I think. All right. So they're very concerned. Here's what they say. The following are several issues that call for urgent action. Now, I find this quite hilarious, and I'll show you in a moment why I find the word urgent hilarious. But what I've noticed about postmodernists, otherwise known as woke people, is they are on both sides of every issue. Like I said, there's no gender toys. But if you use gender toys, that means you're the opposite gender. Okay, so urgency, totally appropriate. Oh my God, where our hair is on fire and we have a right to comfort when it comes to this. There is an urgent action and right to comfort when it comes to this. Okay, so now I'm going to cut away. I'm going to show you. So the reason I think this is so hilarious, because I maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. All right, let's take a look. This is from the totally separate from another whistleblower. Send me a YouTube video about white supremacy and confronting it in classrooms. Here are the characteristics of white supremacy as they identify. What's the first one? Urgency. Urgency is white supremacy. Oh no. Oh no. Is Thrive white supremacist? They are calling for urgent action. Then we have right to comfort. It's so important we create a safe space. We have to create a safe and welcoming and inclusive environment, you guys, because otherwise they will have discomfort and bullying and harassment and rejection. And oh no, this will be so uncomfortable. So they have a right to comfort. Individualism is totally bad and white supremacist, unless of course you're cat gendered or you're somewhere else on the infinite possibilities of gender spectrum. Then individualism is totally fine. It's totally, you could be like, I'm unicorn fairy gendered and my pronouns are tweak and twirl. I mean, then your individualism is celebrated. We'll make a brand new flag. What would you like your flag colors and designs to be? It could be a patchwork quilt just for you because you're included. We want you to feel like you belong. Oh, you want individualism, like you want an individual right to be left alone and, defend yourself and take care of your family. Screw you, white supremacist, you evil person. Okay. I have to laugh because if I didn't laugh, I'd go crazy. Either or the binary. Okay, they're at least consistent there. Worship of the written word, absolutely hilarious, coming from the people who have 75,000 volumes on critical theories and are rewriting the English language as we speak because words are so important. They have to rewrite them and reinvent them. We have to get rid of the universal he, and we have to make sure you use whatever pronouns you want in writing and so forth. But yeah, fear. This whole thing on the gender thing is fear. Progress is more in quantity over quality. I don't know, but having an unlimited number of genders sounds like quantity over quality to me. Call me crazy. And then denial and defensiveness. Don't you think maybe you're being a little G.R. Umery? Don't you think it's a little creepy the way you're doing, manipulating these children? What are you? Ban them from Twitter. The whole thing seems very white supremacist to me. I don't know. Do you guys agree? Let's go back and see, because I personally think it is. All right, let's see. Here we are back here. Yeah, so it's very urgent. It's very, very urgent. And so this is how many they have been bullied at school compared to 16% of their non-LGBTQ peers. They've been bullied. that percentage of them. Okay. They haven't told us how they defined bully, how they defined a questioning youth. That could be like almost anyone at this point. They haven't told us how they did the comparison. Is this self-reported? Are these documented cases? One person's bullying is another person, I don't want to date you. I mean, we don't know. This is all self-reported by them, and they're an activist organization. 24% of LGBTQ youth, 41%. So these questioning youth have a serious problem. Maybe we shouldn't plant so many questions in their minds, because it seems like a large percentage of them are having significant problems. They're getting bullied. They're skipping school because they felt unsafe. There's that right to comfort there. I thought that was white. And then we have, oh my gosh, 61% of questioning youth are battling symptoms of depression. Did it occur to you that their depression might be brought on by the level of chaos you've planted in their brain about who they are? Could that maybe cause some depression or exacerbate it a little tiny, teeny, weeny bit? Because their rates of depression exceed those of the LGBTQ youth. Maybe you should stop questioning them. It's just a thought. How many of these questioning youth are actually gay, and you're putting some kind of weird fear in them, or teaching them to internalize homophobia because you're actually trying to convert them into being something else? How many of them are straight and feeling bad about it? How many of them are white and feeling bad about that? Did it ever occur to you that maybe you people are putting some of these depressive thoughts in their minds? No, of course not. It has to be everyone else, the horrible oppressive society. And then they've seriously considered it. 40% of questioning youth have considered suicide. We need to get some help for these questioning youth. Like, maybe look at why they're so questioning. Why do they have so many questions? Couldn't possibly be this brand new worldview that's being foisted on them out of nowhere. The compounding effects of anti-LGBTQ. I'm sorry. Somebody help me out with this. Please, somebody help me out. With Gays Against Groomers, can you help me out with this? I don't want to sound ignorant, and maybe I am ignorant. I'm sure there is still some anti-LGBTQ stigma or anti-LGBT stigma out there amongst teenagers, people in school, whatever. I'm sure there is. Okay. But when I read this stuff, they make it sound like we're living in like 1980 or before. That's what I feel like. I feel like we didn't have the Quilt Project. We didn't have everything we've learned since Matthew Shepard. We didn't have any of the pride parades or anything. It's like we no progress has happened. It makes it sound like, compounding effects of LGBT. Not to mention the fact that the entire world for these children is plastered in rainbows. It has become the hippest, coolest, newest, most wonderfully celebrated thing, it seems, to pick one of those letters and apply it to yourself. So much so that I personally know children who have told me they feel left out. They feel strange, just being normies, they call it. So I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm not saying the individual children are still feeling like, of all the things I had to be, I mean, this wasn't like, I kind of wish it didn't happen to me or what. I'm not saying that, especially if they're in certain kind of households where they're really nervous about it. But they just make it seem like there's been no progress. Like, this is the most important, urgent thing that schools need to contend with today, not reading, when we have like 70% borderline illiterate kids. They don't read proficiently. They don't do math proficiently. But this is the issue of the day. And nobody ever stops to think, maybe, just maybe, if these kids were focusing less on their sexuality, less on their gender identity, less on all of these really confusing identity issues while they're still in the process of becoming. They're not adults. It is completely normal when you're a teenager to feel out of sorts and weird and like you don't know where you fit in. And I don't care who you are. You don't have to be gay to feel like awkward as hell. Okay, that adds an extra dimension to it. But until you've walked a mile in different people's shoes, you don't know. You don't know. So it's an awkward time. Let's accept that. And what if not focusing so much attention on this would actually be preferable? What if redirecting towards building up your own skills and your own knowledge and your own power, because knowledge is power, your own power in this world to understand the world, to move around in this world, to master your environment, would give them a sense of confidence so that these other issues they have no control over will be less of a problem, will not be so dominant. Because what do we know about kids, about teenagers especially? They tend to be given to little melodrama. It's normal. It's hormones, right? It's their rational brain is not fully formed. So why would you want to whip them up into a frenzy of irrational fear and concern and urgency, and everybody is possibly against me unless they're a declared ally, so that they walk around the world thinking unless somebody is wearing rainbow badges and t-shirts and waving a flag on my behalf and jumping in front of being an upstander for me before anyone's even said anything, that I'm in constant danger. Well, no wonder they don't feel safe. But it's not real. I don't think this level of stigma that they talk about is quite as real as they make it out to be. And like I said, I could be wrong. But I feel like they exaggerate at a time when, even if they were right, that it's still kind of bad, they're not helping anybody by saying, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. Because you're not going to really make people more accepting this way. This isn't how you make people more accepting. This is how you maybe bully people into submission. But you know what tends to happen when you bully people into submission? They tend to not like you. And if they would have been perfectly fine with you before, they would have been like, I didn't even notice if you were gay. I don't care. Now they're like, get the frick away from me with your rainbows. And that's another thing can happen with kids. They can get belligerent. They can get defensive. They can get, I'm sick and tired of you being the center of the universe. And because I'm just a regular person, I'm just average, whatever you want to call it, sis, I'm like, the bad guy unless I jump into your camp. People get pissed off where they otherwise wouldn't have been. And I'm one of those crazy people who thinks that's part of the design of this, is to sort and separate and have us be at each other's throats, because that makes people easier to control. But I don't think I don't believe for a second this helps anybody. I don't. I just don't think it spreads love and happiness. But that's me. Now I want to show you, we're going to go back to New Jersey briefly, because I now have in my possession the adopted standards for Cherry Hill Public Schools for comprehensive health, physical ed. I'm not going to go over every single thing of this. Some of it's perfectly benign. Some of it's like borderline. But when we get down to personal and mental health, social and sexual health, 2nd grade, this is where I start to get a little twitchy. Because here we are in by the end of second grade. So now we're dealing basically with 7-year-olds, 8-year-old, like going into that age range. Discuss the range of ways people express their gender and how gender role stereotypes may limit behavior. I'm sorry, no. Absolutely no. This is exactly why Governor DeSantis signed the legislation he signed in Florida. This is what it was designed to prevent. This was not designed to prevent, Susie talking about her 2 daddies and saying, my daddies are so awesome and I love my daddies. No, that's not what it was about. It was about preventing this. It was about preventing kids who enter 2nd grade, again, like they're 7 essentially for the majority of 2nd grade, having this conversation with a person, not their parents. Strange adult. Totally inappropriate. Totally confusing. And I don't care how much somebody on the internet wants to tell you, kids are smart. Kids get it. They totally get it. When I told them about my pronouns being they, them, and they totally got it. And they used them and then they got it. And then they understood that you could express yourself. You could be anything you want to be. They're 7. They believe in Santa. They think the tooth fairy is real. They don't get anything. They're just like, teacher's fun and smiley and has a quirky, upbeat voice and purple hair and like is really nice and like, yeah, okay, I can be whatever. That is not getting it at a conceptual level. Yes, the DeSantis bill needs to go national. That bill is exactly correct. And honestly, I don't think it goes far enough. It says third grade. After third grade, they're all in. I mean, the kid is now 9. Let's go. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I think it needs to go a little farther, but that's just me. I could be wrong. Maybe it says something about the 9 to 12-year-olds, whatever. But I personally, I don't know why they cut it off at third grade, because I don't think this is even appropriate for third grade. That's me. Families shape the way we think about our bodies, our health, and our behaviors. You see anything wrong with that statement for second graders? Families shape the way we think about our bodies, our health, and our behaviors. They are directly inserting themselves into the parent-child relationship with this. What business is it of theirs to talk to the child about what families do? First of all, how do they know? How do they know? What ideas are they planting in the children's heads about their families that they're going to take back home to their families? Describe different kinds of families locally, nationally, and globally. Like the teacher knows. Like the teacher's the most up on family structure around the world in the second grade. Again, like I said, I taught elementary school. I taught first and second grade. Those are my grades. And if you said, teach the students about different kinds of families locally, nationally, and globally, I'd be like, no, I have to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to teach phonics and spelling and reading and math. And I want to put on plays, and I want to color, and I want to, make sure they know their multiplication tables going into third grade. No, I don't want to have this conversation. First of all, I don't know. I don't know what kinds of families there are locally. I can hypothesize, I guess, but I really don't want to talk about it. The fact that there are adults who want to do this disturbs me. It should disturb you too. I don't think we talk about this enough. They go, oh, okay, let's talk about families. Oh, okay, let's do that. Oh, yeah, families shape the way our bodies. Why aren't more parents going, I'm sorry, what? People have relationships with others in the local community. Identity-based social needs of all people. They are 7. Identity-based identify basic needs, social needs. At 7, it's basic needs: food, shelter, clothes, safety. Nobody's hurting me. But social needs at 7, I like to have friends, mom and dad, grandparents. Determine the factors that contribute to healthy relationships. Well, you know what's number 1? Healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries contribute to healthy relationships. Starting with you, teacher, back off. It's like, I can't. Oh my God, you guys. All right. End of grade 5. Describe gender role stereotypes and their potential impact on self and others. Differentiate between sexual orientation and gender identity. Grade 5. They're 10. Demonstrate ways to promote dignity and respect for all people, e.g., sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, differing ability, immigration status, family configuration. Demonstrate ways to promote dignity. What does that look like? Why do we need to demonstrate that? Whatever happened to just the golden rule? You know how to promote dignity with any person you meet, like any person, human, breathing, sentient being. You don't need to know more. Do you really need to know more? Does it matter what all the stuff is? They're a living, breathing human on planet Earth. You, as another living, breathing human on planet Earth, should treat them as you would like to be treated. That means understanding that you end here and they begin at the tip of their nose, and you should not trespass in their space, and vice versa. We're good. Okay? Moving on. That's how you promote dignity and respect, is you understand where you end in the beginning. Not by labeling people with all their little labels and then say, what does that even mean? Demonstrate. So, okay, here's how you would demonstrate dignity for someone who's gay. Okay, do this. I would love to see this demonstration. Do I need to know if they're gay to treat them with dignity? Do I need to know if they're Chinese? Do I need to know if they're poor? They're a person. They're somebody's baby at any age. They could be 80. They could be 8 months, 8 days. They're someone's child. That's what my dad used to do. We would be walking down the street and we might see like a homeless person. And he would point to the person and he would say, that's somebody's child. That's somebody's baby. And the message was clear. The message was clear to me. That's a human being. And even if they have nobody, or they seem like they're in the worst possible state of their life, they're a human child just like you are. Other people, religious people might say that's a child of God, whatever. I don't care how you frame it. You just do that enough time with children so they understand that it doesn't matter what somebody looks like, doesn't matter what station they are in life, it doesn't matter how poor they are, it doesn't matter if they're living in the street, it doesn't matter if they're a drug addict, it doesn't matter if they're gay, it doesn't matter. These identity markers, these factors about them are irrelevant, but they're making it super relevant. Why? Why aren't we asking more questions? Why aren't we saying why a lot more? Why aren't we going to schools and saying, no, just know that you are wasting my child's time, making them confused, labeling people when I go out of my way not to do that. I am raising an adult who does not look at people this way as a bundle of labels. I am raising my child to look at human beings as human beings. And you're in my way. You are in my way. That's what we need to be saying. Family members impact the development of the children physically. Why do they keep talking about family members? When was this ever the case? When you were in school, did your teachers go, now your family's affecting how you look at your body. And you know what? Your family is impacting the way you develop socially and emotionally. Your family, how about you leave the family out of it? How about you shut the... Okay, so this keeps going. And they get more into like sex and things with the older grades, as you can imagine, in some pretty creepy ways. But I like to show you the younger grades and the things that seem like, because, you know, you get to the older grades and you be like, I'm talking about anal sex, whatever, all different kinds of sex and whatever. And and that you recognize right away, you're like, ooh, right? But you might not recognize that a conversation with a 7-year-old about how family shapes your identity and your body, and hey, let's demonstrate ways to show people dignity, that you might not see a problem with that. You might be like, okay, like it's just kind of, it goes in your eyeballs and out the back of your head or whatever. And you're just like, don't think about it. And I'm sitting here telling you to think about it. Stop looking at documents like that with all the little numbers and bullet points and words, and it's tiny print. And like experts wrote it, and I'm just a parent, and I'm like, what do I know? You know a lot more than you think you do. Give yourself credit. Every single thing you see in your kid's curriculum, I want you now to go, why? Even if you think you know the answer, why? How does this help? What does this help? How does this help my child become a better reader? How does this help my child become better at math? How is this helping my child just get through the day and learn more tomorrow than they knew today about the things I sent them to school to learn? You are not the parent. I am not a caregiver. Need to ask more questions. So, and then I showed you the charming white supremacy thing. So the last thing I'm going to show you tonight is a YouTube video. It's the video that corresponds with, and I've got to find it. Did I not pull it up? Oh, maybe I didn't. It's the video that corresponds with that white supremacy thing that I showed you. Anti-racist programs from American University. Remember I said that they're teaching the teachers? Okay. Well, this is what this is. All right. Okay. So here we have this woman, and I've put it at a point where I wanted to jump in because she talks about how this came about, and I think this will be relevant. Now, this is anti-racist programs at American University specifically for teacher training. All right, so we're just going to listen to a little bit of this, and I think you'll understand very quickly why.
Has to be in place. So that's how this was born. It was also born out of an idea that we conversations that we had with Dr. Ibram Kendi, who was a faculty member at American University. And we are very close colleagues, and created an anti-racist curriculum for teacher preparation. It's funded by the Gates Foundation. We'll be rolling that out soon. But those conversations made us really think long and hard about how can we have teachers being anti-racist without the leaders in their schools also really understanding that same approach. So this really came out of conversations with Dr. Kendi, our work around teacher preparation, anti-racist teacher preparation, and we felt this was the next logical step.
The next logical step, we got to have the administrators, the people who hire the teachers. We have the teachers, then we have the leaders. So they're educating teachers, administrators, principals, superintendents, everybody on down the line, funded by the Gates Foundation. So this is what we're up against, you guys. This is what we're up against. This is why, when people like me say, you cannot fix it, you can merely survive it or help your kids survive it. You're in kind of a race. If you have a kid in a school, a public school, as I said today on Twitter, it's there. If you aren't seeing it, you're either missing it, you're not looking in the right place. You need to look for certain words. You need to look in the book lists. It's germinating. If it's not really overt and in your face, it's germinating, it's percolating, it's in the library, it's in the heads of the teachers. It might be 3 teachers out of 5. And so there's still a couple teachers there like clinging by their fingernails to sanity, but it's there. It's there because every school district in the United States has an equity plan. It's there because, if the district has a DEI office director someplace, somewhere in the district or somewhere in the state or somewhere in the Board of Education at the state level, it's there. If it's in the university in your state, in the teacher training program, it's in your schools. So it's not a matter of whether it's there, it's how much is there. What's so ironic is they talk about in critical race theory they'll come down to me and say, we're not teaching Derek Bell in the schools. Oh, sorry. In critical race praxis or methodology or critical theory, whatever the hell you want to call it, okay? Critical pedagogy, anti-racist teaching, whatever. They tell the students, they tell the teachers, and then they tell the students, it's not about whether there is racism, it's how much and how it presents itself. Okay, guess what? It's not about whether woke is in your schools. It's there. It's how much and how it presents itself, where it presents itself, etc. And if there's SEL in your schools, it almost doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the SEL is worse. The SEL is straight brainwashing, reprogramming, taking your individual child with the potential to be a unique individual who sees him or herself that way. That's what's so important. If I could get it just drilled into everybody's brain that it is not automatic. Guys, the concept of self that we have as 21st century Americans is relatively new to the human species. It's really quite new. All right. The idea that we exist separate and apart from our parents, separate apart from our family, separate apart from a tribe, separate and apart from others, from a village, from a spouse, etc. That is a really new concept in human history. Perception of self has evolved along with us. And when the United States was founded, we reached what could have been like the pinnacle of it. John Locke. The idea that you have natural rights inborn as an individual human being, whether you believe in a soul or you don't, doesn't matter, that you have natural rights, okay, that are yours. Nobody can take from you. Brand spanking freaking new concept. Not something that is just part of being human. It's not. It's an enlightenment idea. And as long as it took us to get there, it could take us a very short period of time to do away with it if the wrong people get hold of our kids. And these are the wrong people. They don't want our kids to have a belief in natural rights. They don't want that. They don't believe in rights. Go watch the show I did the other day with Ray Raymond. They don't believe in rights. I don't know if it was him or if it was, because I had two shows that day and they kind of blur. Might have been Frank McCormick. Either way, watch them both. They're both great guys. And they kind of in different ways made that point. They don't believe in rights. They're actually quite suspicious of individual rights. And they tell you so all the time. And was it not obvious during COVID? Is it not obvious every time there's a school shooting and they come for the guns? Is it not obvious? The only time you'll ever hear anything about individuality or individual rights is, like I said, with the 75,000 different genders and Roe v. Wade. That's it. That's it. You want to kill a fetus or you want to be a cat. Now you're an individual. But everything else, no, you're not. And the only reason those are okay is because those are sort of, they're holies of their particular religion, of their particular cult, right? Having an abortion is one of the holies. It's one of the things you can do to be in the in crowd, to be in the, like, screw the people, screw the tradition, screw religion, screw everything that came in the past. That's why. That's the real reason. It's not because they give a shit about your individual liberty or your bodily autonomy. If they cared a whit about bodily autonomy, they'd be fighting for birthing rights. They'd be fighting against shot mandates. They'd be fighting against so many things. They would not for a second want state-run healthcare, because where do you have less bodily autonomy? No, they don't give a crap about that. They care about the fact that it puts them into the in crowd, the cool kids who are like, hey, I can kill a baby. Hey. I'm right. I mean, I'm sure I'll get flack for this, but that's the ones who go out and protest, whatever. I'm not talking about the quiet people sitting at home going, I'm not really comfortable with the government saying somebody has to be pregnant. I'm not talking about those people. I'm one of those people. Okay. I'm talking about the ones who are out there, with their boobs hanging out and they're painted, like my body, my choice on their naked chest and their whatever they're doing. They're about something else. For them, it's a religious rite of passage or something. I've had 10 of them or whatever. It's a completely different purpose. It's not about individual liberty, because people who care about that are consistent. They're consistent. They're like, I'm not comfortable with the government doing this, but I'm not comfortable with the government saying you have to have a shot either. I'm not comfortable with all of this. This is force. Not comfortable. Those people are consistent. They care about rights. They don't care about rights. So you need to understand that. And your child comes into this world perfectly content to be attached to you. Look at a toddler. They barely let go of your leg. I mean, they have to be a super independent little toddler. Otherwise, they come and they go, they push me and pull you again. But they're perfectly content to hold on to you, not let go of your leg. They struggle to detach. That's why separation anxiety is a thing. So this notion that we were like emerge from our mother's womb like an individual conscious of our selfness is ludicrous. No, we don't. We develop that. And when you have healthy attachment to your parents and healthy attachment, to yourself, and you develop identity organically in a supportive family that loves you, whoever you are, doesn't project a bunch of crap onto you. We seem to know how bad it is when parents do it, but not when teachers do it. If your parents are like, you're going to be a doctor and you're going to be this kind of a man and you're going to be this and this is the right way to be and that's the wrong way to be. We automatically look at them and go, what? Ew. But when teachers do it, oh, see, they have a teacher voice. So it's okay. We need your teacher voice. We need your teacher voice. And this is teacher voice. That's kind of like this. It's very high pitched, very like... Then apparently you could do the exact same thing and it's fine. Nobody says like, why don't you let the kid let them figure themselves out. But when you do, that's how you grow into an individual person. That's how you appropriately separate from your parents, go off and conquer the world. These people are not going to be capable of leaving any group or doing anything alone. No wonder I read it was like 2 years ago and they had an article saying, Gen Z discovers co-living arrangement. Or, I don't know, they came up with some bogus number like, oh, wow, look, guys, they discovered roommates. It was like so ridiculous. They read a whole article about how this great innovative thing where they'll live together in the same apartment. I'm like, that's roommates. Like, what? And they're making it like this innovative thing because they don't like to be alone and they want to share expenses and they're feeling lonely. And so they were like going to move in with a bunch of people and have these, they gave it some fancy schmancy name. And I'm like, yeah, that's roommates. But that's what they did. But they're not going to be comfortable not having roommates or moving back home or somehow just like going off on their own if they keep this up with this group identity. I mean, as it is, they've got affinity groups and they got dorms. I was just helping somebody today, a student, write their essays for college. And the student was trying to figure out, how do I write the essay about why I'm specifically choosing this college and this major? And so we were looking at the website together and like, well, let's take a look. Have you done the research? No, she hadn't done the research. Let's try to do some of it together. Let's look at some of these different things the major offers, the school offers. It was University of Michigan. And I'm looking at all these different living arrangements that you could choose. They different, like we offer many different residential communities. And the residential communities got so granular. It was like women in STEM residential community. Like it's not enough that you go to STEM classes all day and you're around whoever the women are in your classes or whatever, but you want to only live with women who are going into STEM fields 24 hours a day. Like you want to live in dorms with these people. And they had other things like that. They had things even more granular than that. And I'm like, what is the message to these people? It's not diverse. That's not a message of like diversity and inclusion. That's a message of like, you better find your tribe and you better hurry up and do it, or you're going to be like, what? In the MISC category? Like you're going to just be over in the MISC dorm with the MISC people who didn't find the perfect little tribe that the puzzle piece fit into by the time they were 18. To me, I looked at that. I was like, I couldn't do this. Like if I were 18 and I had to apply to college and I had to sit and look at all these different residential arrangements and there were so many of them and it almost felt like all the kids were going to pick one and then they just had like dorm. Other than that, it was like dorms. I would have been like, I don't want to go here. That seemed awful to me. Now, maybe people love that. Maybe they're like, yes, I want my whole dorm to be filled with people just like me. That seems the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion thing. Of course, because they're also African-American living communities. Yes. They aren't calling them specifically that, but they have some other name for it. I can't remember what the name was, but you look it up and it's like, oh, I see what that is. And in some schools I hear they do that. They do have dorms. They have whole floors. They have a whole thing. What you want to do is you want to just live with people, want to resegregate. You can do that. That sounds pretty exclusive to me. So these things matter. These things matter. SEL is the most important, but the gender stuff, the anti-racism stuff, it's going to come in through the teachers, the administrators, and it's going to come in through the SEL if nowhere else. That's why in the private schools, what I've said to people today is they'll say, no, my private school doesn't have it. And then we go and we're like, have you looked at your book list? Did you notice who accredits your private school? And I hate doing this. This is not, I hope I don't sound smug because I tell people, please prove me wrong. Go do the research and come back and tell me I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. Please, please, please tell me I'm wrong. But don't just come at me and say it's not there. Okay. It's either explicitly not there or it is there. That just operate under that, assumption, and you'll be better able to deal with whatever comes and keep a watchful eye and learn the vocabulary and talk to your kids. And if there's one message you can give your children, I'm going to probably do this at the end of every show, but if there's one message you can give your children, it's to remind them they are a unique and precious individual person. And don't ever let anyone else tell them otherwise. In fact, I would go so far as to tell a child, even, yes, as young as 6, don't let anyone label you. Don't ever let anyone label you. And if they say, what's a label? Say, well, if they try to say, you're this, you're that, or if they try to get you to identify yourself in any way other than what mom and dad put, or caregiver put on the forms at school or by your name, come home and tell mom, or come home and tell dad, or come home and tell one of us. Okay. Come home and tell us that they tried to get you to say that you were a bunch of stuff other than Susie or Sammy or whatever. Just come home and tell us, because you just keep saying, I am this, and say your name. That's who you are. You are your name. And if you can just get them to have that boundary where they keep saying to the teacher, I'm Susie. Yes, but are you a boy or a girl? I'm Susie. The non-answer become ungovernable. The non-answer is an answer. They're not being rude. I'm Susie. Yes, but are you a boy or a girl? I'm Susie. They'll stop asking. Okay. So, and if they go, we're having a problem because Susie does not want to choose her pronouns. We don't. You feel like, that's not a problem. Everything's working just fine. Thank you. And they go, I don't understand. We need her to do. You need? I thought this was about Susie. And they'll be like, well, is it? No, I thought this was about Susie. Susie's fine. Thank you. Come back to me when we're talking about how well Susie's learning her alphabet. Okay. And then when Susie learns what nouns are, then maybe we can talk about pronouns. But right now, Susie is Susie. If you must, you can call her she. But Susie's Susie. And you got to talk to your kids. I'm sorry it's come to that, but you can't take for granted that you're just sending your kid to school knowing who they are. No, they're incredibly suggestible. They want to fit in. They want to please. They want the teacher's nice. The teacher doesn't have devil horns and a tail. The teacher's nice. The teacher's probably fun as can be. The teacher's probably got a classroom that looks like, like a bag of Skittles like exploded. Why wouldn't they want to do whatever the teacher says? We're going to sing a song about everybody's gay. There is a song, by the way. Go look it up on YouTube. Everybody's gay. It's a song made for children. So there's that. I put it in a video once and then I got a copyright issue. So I had to take it out. So anyway, all right, real quick before we end, does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, whatever? As always, you can send me things. I can bring them up on a Sunday. Yeah, you know what? This is so true. Manalula says, if it ever came to such a conversation with a teacher, it'd be time to pull the child from that school. I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you get a teacher telling you that there's an issue because your child wants to be called by their name all the time, that's a clue. That's a red flag. Big one. Big red flag. And then this is a really important point. The TQIA movement is going to create so much animosity towards normie gays. It makes us furious. It makes me furious too. It makes me furious too. This is really, really aggravating. And if I could convince these teachers, especially the like big-hearted, well-meaning ones who are just not all there as far as thinking about this actively, it would be that. It'd be like, you're not just not helping, you're hurting. If you genuinely, sincerely care about people in this community, as you put it, stop what you're doing. Just stop. You're not helping anybody. It's a really bad play. Because they don't really, Charlie says, from a gay perspective, coming out is one of the most important experiences. They make it so much harder by teaching shit like this. I agree. They're making it just like so, they make everything too public, too shared, too performative. There's nothing private anymore. There's nothing that's yours anymore. And that's intentional. And that's, like I said, that's part of the social emotional learning. That's part of social emotional learning, by the way, is all woven in here. This is social emotional. It's just CASEL lessons and second step lessons. This is social emotional learning includes any and all lessons where the teacher is talking about emotions, identity, relationships, the things that previously the student figured out on their own or figured out with their parents and their peers organically. We all learn to be social and emotional creatures. We are social and emotional creatures. We're humans. It's primates. That's what we do. Okay. We're going to learn social emotional skills one way or the other. We're going to have good ones, bad ones, whatever, but we're going to learn them because we don't live in a cave alone. Okay. We're not hermits. So we're going to learn them. It just comes down to where and from whom and with what worldview? What worldview colors our perception of ourselves as a social being? What worldview colors our perception as an emotional being, the role of our emotions, what right we have to them, what they mean, what they ought to mean to other people? That's what they're trying to teach them. They're trying to teach you that, like, everybody's emotions are valid, which basically means no one's are. Because they're all public. It's all, it's like, and then at any point in time, somebody could say, your emotion competes with my emotion, therefore yours is invalid. But then, what you're all fighting now. If we had some things that were private, it wouldn't matter if somebody else accepted our emotions. It's none of freaking business. I don't share them with anyone who I don't already trust. I don't already feel like I can trust you with my emotions. So I'm going to, because you know why? Because I don't walk around the planet Earth with expectation that you need to validate those emotions. You need to respect those emotions. You need to, deal with them, cope with them, accommodate them, or any other thing. Because I'm an individual. I'm a separate person from you. And therefore, I understand that you're a separate person from me. And therefore, I know I can't trust everyone. So I'm selective. I'm discerning. I take my time opening up and sharing with people. That's how I keep myself safe. That's healthy boundaries. But the way they do it, the way they teach social emotional learning, there are no boundaries. Boundaries are toxic. Boundaries are mean. Boundaries are rude. The only people allowed to have boundaries are the people who scream the loudest and have the most identity markers. And even they're boundaryless. It's completely dysfunctional. It is completely unhealthy and dysfunctional and abnormal. And I use that term very deliberately because, and I'm not just talking about abnormal in terms of not normative, like, oh, what, culture wants, because right now the culture wants us all to be lunatics. It's abnormal in the sense that what human beings evolved and developed over time as a way of being that caused us to thrive and be as intelligent and productive and and wealthy and have lifespans all the way to 100 and all the kinds of things were certain kinds of norms and certain kinds of behaviors and certain kinds of expectations that they are trashing and throwing away with both hands. This is by definition abnormal. Against that. They want to destroy that. They want destruction for its own sake. They're nihilists. They don't value what they don't respect your values. They don't value what you value, and they don't believe in rights. And when you can firmly attach to that understanding, it's going to be a lot easier for you to protect your kids. It's going to be a lot easier for you to make whatever sacrifices you need to make to do what you got to do. Because I hear from people, I can't pull them out in school. Okay, well, can you deal with this? This is hard. This is really hard. So anyway, thank you guys so very much. I really, really appreciate. Oh, wait, no, this is an interesting. What if our children don't tell us? How do we know to what degree this is happening? You're going to have to be preemptive and talk to your children about red flags, as calmly as you can. You don't want to scare them, but just say hey, your teachers, I don't know how old your kids are, but if your teachers are ever talking to you about our family or your feelings, whatever, just come home and tell me. I need to know about that stuff. Okay. It's important. It's important for us to talk about that. And you're not gonna be in trouble. It's nothing bad, at all. It's just, this is what I need to know to be able to help you in your schoolwork and stuff like that. There's some certain topics I want to know about. You got to talk to them. I mean, your own kids, so how reticent they are about that. If they're the kind of kids who are afraid you're going to go off on the teacher, and so they're going to hide it from you intentionally, then you're going to have to be a little more sneaky. But you should never allow your child to have any electronic interaction with their school without you knowing all the passwords, all the logins, all the everything. There should never, theirs, not some special observer one for parents, theirs. And you need to look at it every single day. Just make a routine, make a little ritual out of it. Okay, cool. So we just had dinner. Let's sit down. Let's take a look at your stuff that you have going on for school. I just want to catch up. I want to make sure I know what you know. I'm really curious. I'm really curious what you're learning, if you need to go about it that way. Anything you can do, but you've got to look at it. And if worst comes worse, after they go to bed, you got to collect their devices before they go to bed. Don't tell me you let them go to sleep with the devices in their rooms. Please tell me you don't do that. So you get the device, they go to bed. Hey, see you tomorrow, night, night. Open it up. Start digging around. Dig and dig and dig and click on everything and anything and read everything they wrote and everything the teacher said. And don't install any apps on a phone. If they have a phone, don't install any apps on their phone that are for communicating with the class or the teacher. Put them on your phone if you must, or say no, opt out. Tell the teacher, nope, you can email me. We're not doing class dojo. We're not doing any of this stuff. But I need the phone in class to do Kahoot. No, you don't. Don't do Kahoot with my kid. You don't need a phone. They don't need this. And it's you've got to have logins. So how much do you want to pay attention? And if they use a school VPN, any parental supports that you put on your phone or the kids' devices will be broken the second they log into the VPN, and they can log into the VPN from your house. So you have to monitor what they're doing, because they could do it innocently. They could innocently just be like, I have to log into school, and they log into the VPN because that might be the only way they can get to the class, whatever it is, folders, not on your internet. It might be secured and they can't get to it. So they go into the school VPN through your internet. And now suddenly you turn your back for 5 minutes and anything could come through. They can go on in a browser and see stuff while they're surfing using the VPN that you had otherwise turned off, is the point. So, you got to have a whole checklist. I know all the passwords, and you have to be clear with the teacher. And if, like Frank said the other day, if you have to use some kind of subterfuge, use subterfuge. I'm really curious what's going on in our class this year. I want to be a super involved parent. I want to support you in every possible way. So I need to have all the logins. I need to know all the stuff. Where can I go to find it? And what books are you guys going to be reading? I just want to be so up on everything that's going on. I just want to be so involved. Fake it if you have to. Be like, if there's anything I could do to help you out, support my student and getting the most out of your class. I'm so excited for this year. Meanwhile, inside you could be going, okay. And then you get all the information and you find out that, oh, really? That's great. We're doing a new initiative. It's second step. Really? Where can I see all that stuff? Now, of course, you should already be opting out. Please tell me you're already opting out of all the second step in SEL, but you can, say you're really interested and then say, I looked it over and, I think we're going to be opting out of that stuff this year. But, if there's anything you need to know about my son or daughter, you can ask me. I'm happy to talk to you about them and let you know anything you need to know that would be helpful to their learning. Because the subtext is everything else is none of your goddamn business. And that's the part they just can't seem to accept. If it's not helpful to their learning, it's none of their goddamn business. Yes, they take love, something so beautiful, make it look so ugly. They do. They use the word love all the time, which is really kind of gross. And I think that's it. There was a resource now that you guys have brought this up, and I want to go back and see if I can find it. Yeah, I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you guys are not following Courage is a Habit on Twitter, or they have a website, I believe, .org, I think. They've created some really great tools. This is one of them. They also on their website have an opt-out that you can use for opting out of SEL surveys. But in here, they very clearly explain the cycle of indoctrination and the data mining for SEL. And it's very clear how it works. So familiarize yourself with this document, print it out, show it to other parents if you want to, or refer back to it every chance you get. But yeah, it's going to be a full-time job keeping tabs on what they do. I'm sorry to say, I wish it weren't, but it's true. Okay. So I think that brings us to the end of our broadcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know it sounds crazy to say, but as much as you might think I'm helping you, this does help me get, I see this stuff all week, and then I know I can look forward to this show and put it out there with the thoughts that I have and the information I have. And I feel like, it makes me feel a little bit better. It makes me feel like I'm doing something with this information. And if you guys can benefit from it, then I'm really happy. So it's selfish a little bit for me to do this. So I hope I didn't ruin your day, your week. I hope this helps you feel empowered. And I will not be on next Sunday because I'll be away for my anniversary, but I will be back the following Sunday with another show. So again, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all the good things. And thank you so much for coming tonight. When I do publish this tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll put in all the links that I have links for. I'll put it in the description box tomorrow. Right now, I'm going to go hang with my kids, and I will see you guys later. Bye.